Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap up here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is October 18th, 2024. And of course, we're looking at Bitcoin here on the daily to start with. A few things that we're going to cover today. Obviously, we're going to cover trend, support and resistance, volatility, and momentum for the daily. But of course, we're going to take a look at the weekly and maybe some time frames in between the daily and weekly as well to kind of gauge what we could be looking for over the weekend. Of course, Bitcoin trading anywhere where it is here or higher is going to set that higher low on a swing or a close that we were talking about. In this case, a swing and a close that we've been talking about since Monday, really. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I have the line chart on just so that it looks a little bit cleaner on the X timeline there. Let's go ahead and turn candles back on and, take a look at structure here on the daily. Bitcoin has worked its way into the overhead resistance. You're going to have to excuse me as I'm fighting off a yawn. I'm very, very tired. But it's exactly the area that we expected on any closes above 67,272. We saw some intraday resistance around that 67,272. That was that big area in the pivot zone to the top side there after Bitcoin regained the 65.5 area down here. And, the next big area that we were looking for was 68,270. It's technically rather 68.3 to 70,200. So now that Bitcoin is in this zone, we can get a little bit more specific. And essentially, if Bitcoin were to close back below, 68.3, it's 68.298, 68.3 essentially. So, then I'd be looking back to that 67,272 area. I will tell you that if it drops the Thursday low, then we're probably, if it hasn't already headed down further in lower term timeframes, then I would look at that as a sign that it's probably going to put in if it closes below there, it's going to put in a high, and then we'd be looking somewhere down to the 65.5, maybe a little bit lower. That's still anywhere below there still leaves that door open for the 63.8 level here, top side of the recovery zone. But, there is the $65,000 high over here, the close coming in slightly above there, 64,200. We got the 64.5 over here. So anywhere in this no man's land between the top side of the recovery zone and pivot zone is fair game. And, when looking at the structure, we had the low. This was a lower low and lower low swing off of this shorter term uptrend here. So we had essentially this uptrend over here. We have, let's zoom out a little bit more. The first big downtrend, second big downtrend. Coming off of that second big downtrend of this entire overall range, we had an actual technical uptrend on not just a swing basis, but a closing basis as well. And then a big old trend break on that move down to tag the ETF highs at $49,000, which is right around the bear market lower high. It's kind of a front run of that bear market lower high from 2022, which came in at 48,240 on the swing or wick high. And in this case, got front run in a pretty key area, 50 to 53. There's a bunch of weeklies from 2021. And in this case, we saw a lower high, higher low, higher high. So we had a trend reversal in play. And then that dumped out to this most recent lower low. And, this was the most recent lower low. But, before this little uptrend here, we had this low and then a lower low. And then we had another trend reversal. Basically, we had lower high, higher low, higher high. So trend reversal in play, higher low, lower high, lower low, and then a trend break again. A little bit of a bull flag there and then a move up. And quite honestly, I need to see, more trend develop on the daily for this to be a full on play to the upside. It is a play to the top side. I need to see a pullback, whether it's, doesn't matter what happens from here. It can go straight up, but I need to see a pullback at least on a swing. And we do, technically we have swing structure as lower low to higher high, higher low, higher high on the swing. But need to see a higher low close essentially. So, and then that's the trend reversal in play. Nice big pump up here. Could it continue up? Yeah. If we're going to see continuation to the top side, somewhere around $70,000, which this wick high came in, that was a little bit of a front run of the horizontal I have here at 70,187. But in this case, any kind of price action, even in the lower term time frames above $69,000. Oh, hey, we had 65 over here. That was the first high from 2021, and then the all-time high from 2021 there, or the prior cycle all-time high was at $69,000, and Bitcoin got to $69,000.62. So there you go. Any closures above there, even in lower term timeframes, somewhere on 70 to 70,200 is fair game. Anywhere above there, I'm looking essentially 70,000 to 71.5. So we can get specific here. There is some structure here that was being rejected off of the highs, which is why this is kind of painted this way. And then we had a technical high right here on a close open. But realistically, it's 70 to 72. It's really these two highs inside of this above here. Above here on a closes. The bull run begins. I'm going to probably change that because, it's a little bit, we could still get some price action that makes a new all-time high and then still pulls back into these zones to retest. But in this case, 72,000, 70 to 72 here at the daily double top on a wick basis. And then above there, we're essentially looking 72 to the all-time high and higher. And in this case, shorter term time frame closes, 4 or 6 hour. You can start seeing that develop on the, on the lower term time frames. Your 15, 30 minute to an hour time frames will likely give some clues if Bitcoin's pushing back above there. Then you can start looking essentially 70 to 72 and then 72 to the all-time high. Now keep in mind it is a weekend, and I say this every weekend. It's Friday for me still, and it's very late, but weekends can be a little dicey, both of the upside and downside, mainly because there's lower liquidity. So either price does nothing and goes sideways, or, we have some bigger players come into the market and move it. So just be aware of kind of the conditions. Above 69, we're looking to 70 to 72 essentially and higher. And then anywhere really below this 68, I would give it some room. I know that this horizontal is at 68, 300, and we've seen it ran and then a nice run back down into the pivot zone. But realistically, anywhere below $68,000, I would look for it to come back and test around 67 to the 67,272 area, 67,300, something like that. This would be considered an order block. So anywhere testing into this candle, fair game as well. And this is kind of in the pivot zone, which was a little bit of a back test of this higher high structure right here. It did get front run a little bit in the lower term timeframes, but realistically, somewhere around that 66.6 to 66.5 area in the middle of the pivot zone. If we start seeing price close below there, then we start looking down to the bottom side here. I would say realistically, this high structure to the pivot zone is fair game. 64 to 65.5 here is fair game. If we start seeing bearish reclaims of especially this high right here at 64.5 on a closing basis, and Bitcoin hasn't tested this top side of the recovery zone here at 63.8, I would look for it to get tested. We start seeing closures back below there, and this whole zone is fair game. Of course, horizontal support and resistance does matter. These highs do matter. 62.8, at least in the lower term timeframes, 62.8 to 61.8, all the way down to that 60K. You don't want to see Bitcoin closing back below 60K if you're bullish on this move continuing to the highs and higher, the all-time high area and higher. We're testing the high zone. I know a lot of bulls have been calling for 70K. It nearly got there. Split the difference between my 68 to 70 zone that I was talking about. And for all intents and purposes, if we don't see continuation over the weekend, I would look to, it would still be over the weekend, but I'd look to see how CME opens into the Monday market open for the New York session. So that would be the interesting thing to me. So CME opens on Sunday. I think it's 3. It's either 2 or 3 for me. I actually haven't been trading CME, and then I'm very tired right now. So I usually do, or I used to, quite often, but I think it's either 2 or 3. Is the open for the session on Sunday, my time. So that would put it at 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think it's 5 p.m. to be quite honest, but I'd have to go look. And then we have market open on Monday at 6:30. So, and then we have obviously pre-market stuff before then, and then 9:30 Eastern. So just be aware of that stuff. And if I'm saying everything wrong right now, I really wouldn't know because I'm exhausted, but I don't think I'm saying any of that wrong. If I am, go ahead and correct me in the comments and stuff. It's been a long week. Yeah, so just keep an eye on that. Now, realistically, there's a few other things to look at here. Now, we kind of talked about trend. I need to see a higher low. Doesn't matter if price moves higher, it's going to move higher. We still need to see a higher low structure. The last low is down here still from a closing basis, and that's really what matters right now. We do have, a swing high, swing low, swing high, swing low. It's you're going to get all the swing, the wick guys, your GAN traders in many cases. No, it's a full uptrend. Like, okay, I need to see a closing higher low. Thank you. But the last, low is really what matters. And that's 60,000, what is this low? Close 60,280. So right around the bottom side of the recovery zone there. I call it 60,000 to 60,300. And realistically, it's this last swing, and that's at 58,863. And you might recall that that's around the quarterly all-time high from the prior cycle, or the quarterly high from the prior cycle. So in this case, did we see? I don't even remember. This is how tired I am today. Yeah, we've seen quarterly all-time highs been broken. So, but the quarterly all-time high is 58.8. That's this right here. It's not marked on my chart. It's my macro chart that I show you this on. But 58,800 is this quarterly high, and essentially this was a back test of that quarterly. And you can see big resistance around 71.5 at the current quarterly all-time high. But now let's go ahead. That chart was squishy, but I just wanted to look at the number. My apologies for that. Let me go ahead and look at the weekly and give you some criteria for the weekly. Weekly's pretty. Oh no, jeez, this is how exhausted I am. Sorry. Let's look at. Talked about trend, support, and resistance. Let's talk about volatility. I mentioned this. Bitcoin just kind of taking it level to level. If we start seeing it close above, this would be the Friday high at 69. That would kick off more aggressive expansion. We're still getting expansion of volatility and the Bollinger Bands in this case, but it's pretty well structured. But any closes above the upper second, you're going to start seeing Bitcoin pushing that 70,000 to 72 basically by the upper third there, right in the zone. If we did see Bitcoin losing, that 67 to 67.2, then an upper first standard deviation tap is in order, and that's right around the 66 to 66.5 area. And of course below, then we're looking for volatility to start cooling down. You can see that 65 to the no man's land was 65.5 to 65, and then all the way down to 63.8 is available from a volatility standpoint. This is the 20 simple. That is the basis band here. They're starting to come in right there at that 63.8. To be fair, it's like a couple $100 lower, but it would still update to be right around that area by the time most of you see this anyway. Likely going to be watching this on Saturday for most of you because this is going up late. Anywhere below there, you can see lower first is in an area to catch stuff, but I wouldn't want to see Bitcoin trend back down below here on a swing basis, which is around that 62,000. Then I would be looking for this to head down to somewhere around 61 to that $60,000 just below where we had the close come in over here. Below there, we're looking realistically at that low that it needs to hold on any pullbacks and create some structure. And that is that 58,863 in this case, that front run of that quarterly high from the prior cycle. So, Bitcoin's positioned really well right now. Nothing crazy there. Is it getting a little overheated on Stoke? Yeah, again, it can stay up in the overbought zone for an extended period of time. There's nothing wrong with this. 67, 230 or so. So again, that's right around the top side of our pivot zone there at 67,272. So that's the area that you want to see hold. Although otherwise, it's probably looking for a bit of a pullback, and we don't have any in-trend bearish divergence, mainly because it has broken out from this high, and this was a downtrend, or this was a confirmed downtrend, and this is just a breakout. So when you're talking about closes, this is a break of the shorter term time frame downtrend. So there's no in-trend bearish divergence. There's no even, in this case, there's no hidden bearish divergence either. So nothing to worry about in this regard. I would be looking for a continuation to the upside if and only if basically we hold the pivot zone 65, 65.5 on pullbacks. If it starts getting deeper than that, then, bulls needed to pick it up quickly and move on, turn those, any kind of shots down into a wick. Now, when looking at the weekly, here's the criteria for the weekly. It's pretty darn simple. We can go ahead and get rid of that. We can get rid of our accumulation distribution zones. So get rid of the landing bands. By the way, for those that were asking about the landing bands, it's in the bit.ly link in my profile here on X. And then in the link in the video description down below on YouTube. It's free. You just add it to your chart, or your favorites rather, and should be all good. Let's go ahead and take a look at this weekly. This is what we wanted to see. It's what I talked about on Monday. We got this, essentially Morningstar reversal candle on the weekly. We had a higher low swing as it compares to the previous higher low swing, and that lower low. So we had a higher low swing, remember. We had the lower high on the weekly here at we had a downtrend, essentially. We had a lower high on the weekly at $65,000 after putting in a higher low close, but a lower low wick. So price was changing structure a little bit. We had $65,000 on that high. And then we had a lower low close with a higher low wick. So, I'd mentioned in and around here on the daily that structure was changing, especially after the move to $49,000 and they bounced back up. Price just kind of needed to work itself out and hit some zones of liquidity down below. But after getting that lower low close, we got that higher low swing locked in the beginning of September, or the middle of September rather. And then we put in the higher high, which breaks the weekly downtrend. I talked a lot about this for quite a while. And what this shapes up to be right now is on any close above 64.5, we'll still paint, that confirms this higher low swing. That would paint a technical closing low, but I need to see, from Landy's criteria, I need to see a close above 65,600 to really be calling that a technical higher low and a close. And preferably, I want to see it above 66,550 by Sunday's close. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for a close above 66,550 for you bulls out there. And I'm on your side this time, right? I've been on your side quite often off the lows here. And this has been a nice couple of weeks here, almost into 6 weeks here or so. What do we got? Yeah, almost into 6 weeks where I've been pretty bullish with you. Where I'll be honest with you, I was shorting all of this all the way through here, and I flipped pretty heavy bull on this higher low structure off 52.5, and that means nothing. That doesn't mean that you go and you open longs. It's just Landy's shifted the way that he's traded because, as I had mentioned, the structure was changing. And in this case, I would like to see, for me now as well, I'd like to see 66,550 get closed above, get some continuation. And even, I wouldn't mind some further pullbacks within the criteria that don't break down any structure on that daily. And we start to see a higher low develop on the daily and then move on and freaking get this ready to test the highs and higher, right? I'm getting bored too. So, and then of course, this is super, super simple. I mentioned this or showed this on, I don't remember what day it was. It was probably Monday. But it's the stoplight lines. And, it's very simple. Close above 66,550. That's pretty damn bullish. Obviously, getting any close above the close open here at 68. What is it? It's kind of bouncing around here. So we'll take this 68,200 essentially. Would also look good to run 70 from a candle structure perspective anyway, coming into next week, even if it was just to spike it and then pull back. And then, above there, we're looking 72 and then the all-time highs and higher. So cool beans. Need to close at minimum criteria by Sunday. 64, 467, just call it 64 and a half. And then, of course, we want to see weeklies from here on out closing above 58, 863 now. Again, that's the prior cycle quarterly high and, of course, monthly high as well. And on a closing basis, mind you. And that's kind of it. That's all I got for you today. Outside of just a few extras here. RSI looks good. We can check on some cool stuff like I don't know what did I not click my thing the correct way there? There we go. Bullish control zone is going to be at 72, 750, almost $73,000. That's the edge of the bullish control zone here that I just pulled the arrow from. Let's fix that. So that's the edge of the bullish control zone there. For this chart, it's at a it is at a, what is it? A 62. And then this is I believe 38. I should just look instead of guessing, huh? Let's look. I think it's 62 and 38 for these zones. Yep, 62, 38 for the edge of the bearish and bullish control zone. So 38, 62 for your RSI reads. It's above the moving average here. Looks good. Let's just look where the scale midline is now. 60,000, almost 600. So that's in that recover zone down there. And then the bearish control zone should be coming up now. You have $47,000, which is actually a monthly close from the prior cycle area. Yes, I still remember all that stuff. For those of you that have been around for a long time, it's all locked in my brain forever. What was the other thing I wanted to look at on the weekly? Just momentum. Let's take a look at momentum here. See what the pivot is. This is going to update on Sunday, but 57, essentially 500 is where we need to see Bitcoin closing above. And guess where 57.5 is? 57.5 is this low right here, by the way. Just to show you these confluences, and the numbers got to come from somewhere. 57.5 on the weekly area. It just happens to be a daily confluent area on a low. You don't want to see Bitcoin getting below there. Not only would it turn on the weekly, would it break down structure at that 58.8 at that ever so important prior quarterly high and monthly high from the prior cycle. So you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, and a wonderful weekend going forward here. Enjoy yourselves, touch some grass, touch some ass, and don't worry. Apparently it's going to be green candles to the moon and beyond. Maybe we'll all go to Mars this time. And you have a great one. With all of that said, Landy out.